All right, looks like we are live. We are working through a bunch of technical difficulties. Hopefully, everybody can hear me. Please comment in the chats down anywhere below that I can see. Please let me know if you can hear me. I think I'm the only one that has a working mic right now. Appreciate everybody for being here. Apologize, we have a really rough start, really late. I was already going to be a couple minutes late, but this actually made things a good bit more later than what it needed to be. Um, okay, good. You can hear me. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, with that, if World can hear me at some point, just go ahead and put my screen share up on the screen, and we'll go ahead and look at some of these first things here. We have a lot to get into today. Make sure I actually pull up our little outline here as well. But again, appreciate everybody for bearing with us who waited for us to come in. Hi, everybody in here. Looks like we have just me who is first. We have TNT in here as well. We have Kate in here. Looks like that's Chris's daughter. Nice to see you. I think it's the first time we've seen you in here. Then we got House in here, Evil Elmo, Kiba Miyata. Hello for everyone in here. We're just gonna wait a little bit, see if World can't get his USB mic to work. He's just having issues with his XLR setup. If anyone was following with us, World had to get a new hard drive for his PC. It looks like he's just dealing with getting things refigured and reconfigured. But with that, appreciate everybody for being here. So as always, make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Share the show if you enjoy it as well. But what we have to lead off the day is actually going to be a little bit about the Epstein files and the fact that we still have not gotten the release. There has been a lot of pressure on Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and the powers that be to push these things forward that we have not gotten yet. Although it looks like well, we got a little bit with the Zelensky drop and the little bit of drama we saw at the White House. Most people thought that was a great attempt. Well, it was also a good moment. Let's not forget, there's a little bit of aura there with Trump and JD Vance talking down to Zelensky. It's a good feel good moment. It's kind of cathartic. Um, but with that, there is still that kind of feeling that was this done or was this so focused upon because there is an element of the fact that we didn't get what we were promised in the Epstein files. And obviously, who are they protecting? Have we not gotten it? Why is the farthest extent we're going to go is fire people? Many people pointed out they are protecting, literal child violators. I don't, to keep it a bit family friendly, but aren't pushing forward as much as most people would like. They'd like to see these people getting arrested, prosecutions, investigations, etc. But as well as that, we have a great moment with the fact that Andrew Tate is in Florida, came to America. Ron DeSantis was up in arms about that. Seemed that he was talking about deporting them or something along those lines. Oh, it was kind of funny, actually, but we'll get into that as well. Andrew Tate dropped some little bombs here and there. I know everybody he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I do enjoy the breath of fresh air that is telling women and fat men and other elements of the degenerate, trash world that we have, just what is. And so I do enjoy that aspect of it too. We do the fact that the popular Twitch streamer, I should say, is Amouranth, is the was an attempted burglary. She was mugged, she was pistol whipped, she was hit. There's a good bit of news revolving around that, but she is a Second Amendment respecter. She did have a gun on hand. I believe she did end up shooting back at one of them. I'm not sure if she actually just said tagged him, hit him, scared him, but she did actually make it out with that with her life, which is good. She was actually getting threatened over her crypto wallet. And I believe some other keys with that too. Obviously, she's got a lot of money digitally. She's a famous streamer. Not that I support what she does, but I'm glad that she did actually at least respect the Second Amendment enough to use it when she needed it in the moment that she had. We also have the fact that there was a study published by Oxford that they found higher depression rates post gender surgery, which is one of those things that I think most of us already kind of knew, especially with the data coming out. But the fact that Oxford put their weight behind it and dropped a new study with that, I think sheds a little bit of light on top of what we were already seeing with that. So obviously, a bit more of the evidence being matched with what we already all knew. I also added a little bit in here too with the fact that it seems there is a bit more of the Catholics making a wave. Now, not all Catholics, but a particular Catholic who is popular online. I am not Catholic myself, so I'm curious for all of those who are in chat and who follow us who are Catholic, at least give their comment and ideas and pieces of thought with this. We'll get into that a little bit later. I'll save that down the line so it's a bit of a surprise for those who are watching. And we also have the fact that TSMC, Taiwanese chip maker, is investing $100 billion into the US over the next 4 years. This is something that has been major, seeing how the United States in fact, imports the majority of all of our chips. We have to do a lot of things to get these superconductors. And that was a really good sign. And I think maybe Taiwan and these companies maybe see the writing on the wall with how things are going between Taiwan and China. Maybe that is a bit of a sentiment there that they don't think it's going to last very long, at least in terms of their freedom. Also, NATO held an emergency meeting following that fallout we got with Zelensky and Trump and JD Vance. We had all the liberals screaming their heads off and crying. Some of the most sad and pathetic videos I've ever seen in my life came out with grown men older than I weeping at the fact that Trump said mean words or just, basically just, had a smackdown with Zelensky in public, and it was kind of hilarious actually to watch. But NATO held an emergency meeting. Looks like they are moving on without the United States. They are going to ensure it gets done. So other nations putting their weight behind it, including the UK and a few others who have announced things such as troop commitments and other stuff like that. And then finally, last topic on the list, hopefully we get to everything though, is the fact that the tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China are being enforced. For those who thought they were kind of getting whisked away after that big ask initially, you have to understand too, that was pushed as a very conditional. Trump was very verbal about that. They're opening kind of commitments to putting troops on the border and helping with stuff with the influx of not only just drugs, but people came with just very conditions, right? It kind of just pushed these tariffs off a bit. So there was a little bit there to look at that to see, what were they not doing that we were asking that led to the tariffs finally going in force. But they will be, as of right now, enforced tomorrow on both Canada, Mexico, and China. Now, Canada and Mexico are at 25%. Don't remember what China's is at. We'll pull that up in a minute. But it looks like Canada and Mexico will get plenty more liberals screaming and crying, looking at the DOW, the Jounce networks, and seeing that falling. So with that out of the way, looks like I do have a few comments in here from a couple people who want to catch up. TNT is saying, and I put these on screen, but I don't have the controls here, and World's trying to get stuff figured out, so I'll just make sure I do my best to read them. From TNT Cycles PDX, he says, I feel like the disappointing release was just Payman Kash crawfishing the SDNY FBI office. Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially like 9mm SMG, who I don't agree with all the time, but he is one of the best autists out in the space, pointed out, what do you mean? You're letting lower officials do this. You are in control of these guys. Like, go and push them out. Go and show up with guys with guns. Like, get the files, because if we don't get them by the time, who's to say a mass amount of them will be deleted, shredded, paperwork shredder goes burr. That's probably what happened. I do tend to agree a bit with Marcus Young. The Epstein files are never getting released. I think not only just the people, but the foreign nations that it will inevitably implicate. There are many, many reasons why it would be very easy to expect that the Zionists that are Kash Patel and Pam Bondi will never, or at least do as much to have the appearance that they want to, but will actually never give us the full frame picture there. Now we get a couple more here. Jack Flyer said, why is Pam Bondi being walked on and sent papers of nothing, then thinks it's smart to have a staffer make binders of how bad they clowned her and pass them out? Where are the arrests? I tend to agree there. Jack Flyer says, now defund Israel. Yes, I definitely agree with that. Now, let's move on here. We're going to start with the Epstein files that aren't coming. Now, there were a few smaller incidents here, but the reality of this story is the fact that there is now extreme pressure, especially from the dissident right wing. A lot of these accounts that are trying to push Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to either be more so Pam Bondi at this point. Let's see audio from World here. More so,
can you hear me?
Resign. Yes, sir. I do hear you.
Okay. Perfect. Well, we're using Bluetooth speaker this time, so for mic.
All right. Perfect. It works for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just was getting ready to talk into the aspect, the fact that people are calling for Pam Bondi to resign. On screen, we actually have an interaction here from Ian Carroll and her, because she's talking about looking forward to hearing, the Trump speech tomorrow, in which Ian Carroll simply says, hopefully he fires you and gives your job to Matt Gaetz so he can get on with what we all voted for. Many people clearly coming out of the woodworks. They are not happy whatsoever. Even those who aren't technically, dissident right, like individuals like Ian Carroll, who typically tries to follow a more narrow path, very tinfoil hat. Many of the conspiracy theorists in the online, terminally online, are rather disappointed from the promises that were not kept regarding that release. Even the fact that Laura Loomer has gone so far as dropping multiple articles highlighting Pam Bondi and her original connections with people like Jeb Bush, that would have been during the pre-2016 Donald Trump run, Jeb Bush, a lot of kind of very, globalist ties. I say that in quotes. Very seemingly, as I always say, it looks like the river just flows one direction, and it always does. Now, what I would like to highlight on screen, though, here too, is we have a good video from Ian Carroll. I'll make sure I can show this instead and make sure I'm on screen as well. But this is from Ian Carroll, and I'll read the caption here too. It's the fact that he says we don't need the Epstein files. If Pam Bondi wanted to go after sex trafficking pedophile blackmailers, she has everything she needs to open numerous investigations already online. Hell, just this video is enough to get you started, Pam. We're waiting. One thing I would also like to add as well is the fact that Pam Bondi was AG in Florida from the same time period that there were investigations going on into Epstein from around the 2011 to 2019 period. Because Epstein lived in the Florida area at that time. There's also questions as to why was there never anything kind of from her on the offensive on those aspects as well. But clearly there seems to be, there is a bit of, disagreement among the way that people want this handled very, very well. World, did you want to add anything before we go into the video here? I want to actually give you a chance to talk on this.
Let's just go ahead and let it rip. I'm all frazzled from trying to get this set up. I thought I had it all good, and it wasn't. So yeah, let's go ahead and let Ian Carroll let it rip. And as long as you guys can hear me, it's weird. I don't have the feedback coming through my headset, but I can hear you. So there's some disconnect going on here, but I'm able to handle it. But yeah,
I think everybody should be able to hear you too. Everybody in chat, definitely give a thumbs up or something if you can hear Whirl. Okay.
Yeah, let me know. I think so though, because TNT called me a boomer. So we'll see.
That's funny. Okay, we'll go ahead and let this rip.
Yeah.
Need the Epstein files. Pam Bondi has thoroughly disgraced herself by promising a whole bunch of shit and after weeks not delivering on any of it. Somehow she was dumb enough to think that 200 pages was like all the Epstein documents. Like, girl, have you ever been on the internet? I'll show you where the Epstein files are. See, look, Julie gave you the link right there, vault.fbi.gov. There's like 10,000 pages. There's blackouts all over them. Click on that link. It'll bring you here. See, brings you here. There's all these different parts. When you go to them, look, 104 pages in this one. The first ones are always these indexes. And then everywhere where you see a rectangle, that's a blacked out redaction that we could have unredacted. Look, a whole page of redactions. That's crazy. Look, Rodriguez was employed as a chauffeur, butler, house manager for blank at blank. Wonder what that says. Residence blank. Rodriguez worked for blank for approximately 6 months. Rodriguez stated that blank. That would probably be pretty useful if that was unredacted. According to Rodriguez, redacted. Look, Pam, a page that you could release. And there's all kinds of pages just like this. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents like this already in the FBI vault online. There's handwritten notes from victim interviews like this. Jeffrey Epstein purchased tickets to blank for holiday break Xmas. Wonder what that means. Who picked her up? Man, this would sure be useful to have unredacted. Someone felt uncomfortable, went home to blank. Jeffrey Epstein said blank and blank. Thought that meant he would pay. For what? Talked to blank and blank, number from blank. Geez, this page seems to be clearly discussing more plans to travel with them, probably to the island. And all of that is from an interview conducted by SA, meaning Special Agent blank. And its subject was biographical file on blank. Who knows who it was? Gosh, sure would be useful. I mean, you could still even protect the victim's identity and just fill in some of the gaps. If the DOJ was at all serious about doing anything about this, there are infinite leads that they could currently be chasing down to actually bring people to justice. People that are still alive and still engaging in these activities, because these activities are still being engaged. And you know what? You don't even need to go to the FBI files to start bringing down the big fish. I got one for you right here. Meet Leslie Wexner, the bankroll behind the entire Epstein operation. Homeboy is the CEO of 3 different prominent companies that...
I would like to add too, for those who aren't familiar and aren't maybe from Ohio, Les Wexner has his name on multiple things. I'm not sure how long he lived in Ohio. There are multiple actual buildings attached to Ohio State campus buildings named after Wexner. There's Can't remember them now. It's not like Les Hall, but one of them's like the art building. It's like Wexner Hall. There's different portions of this. Like Les Wexner was a huge baller, like a huge money spender. He has his name on a lot of different things, donated to do a lot of stuff. But this connection here was one I actually wasn't aware of, even being in Ohio for some time, is the fact that he bankrolled a lot of stuff behind Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie and Fitch, and Hollister.
That have been operating sex trafficking rings that have now been exposed. But just so we're clear, he is still scot-free, living in Ohio, doing old mob boss shit on his 336-acre super mega mansion. It's worth $47 million. He's doing great. That's $47 million of human trafficking money. And in case you've never read One Nation Under Blackmail, let me give you a little bit of details about Leslie Wexner from this book by Whitney Webb. Seriously, Pam Bondi could just read this book and she could bring down like 10 human traffickers tomorrow. In 1990, as previously mentioned, Epstein had become head of the Wexner Investment Company and Wexner's top money manager, ousting his predecessor, Harold Levin. A year later, in July 1991, Wexner had handed near complete control of his affairs over to Epstein and a far-reaching power of attorney document. This is big. The document, among other powers, gave Epstein the ability to ask, demand, sue for, recover, collect, and receive all sums of money on Wexner's behalf, as well as take over, buy, sell, or transfer property, tangible or intangible. That's insane. That means that Jeffrey Epstein could buy and sell Leslie Wexner's companies at will. He could manage all of his money and assets at will. And this power of attorney is significant because it means that Epstein could engage in these activities without Wexner's knowledge following the signing of this document. Thus, after this point and up until the 2000s, it is hard to know what decisions of Wexner's may have been made solely by Epstein. And that's the strategy piece, is Wexner uses this as a shield to say that he had nothing to do with it. He got fooled by Epstein. It's probably just a coincidence that Leslie Wexner's other giant fashion brand, Abercrombie and Fitch, was also running a sex trafficking ring targeting boys. This just broke this year when the CEO got arrested and charged. Just couldn't help this tidbit. Under the leadership of CEO Mike Jeffries, Abercrombie and Fitch underwent a meteoric rise, focusing on teen fashion and specifically the good-looking, cool kids, as in all the little boys that Mike liked to fuck. So in 1988, Leslie Wexner's company, The Limited, bought Abercrombie and Fitch, which is also Hollister. And then he immediately put in Mike Jeffries as CEO. Mike Jeffries was Leslie's guy. I'm sure that is just a coincidence. Oh yeah, and then the company launched a children's product line, Abercrombie Kids. Hooray! And now when you search for this information, it's come out that Mike Jeffries is going to take, dementia as his excuse. He's had dementia all this time that he was raping boys. We should probably just let him off scot-free. I'm sure Leslie Wexner had dementia for the 30 plus years that he was bankrolling all of these gigantic human trafficking, sex scandal, blackmail rings. Not to mention when he founded the Wexner Heritage Foundation, the Wexner Foundation, all these foundations that are specifically about empowering Israel and advocating for Israel's international interests. Oh, what's up, Gigi? That's not to mention when he founded the Mega Group, which by all indications was a group, a conglomerate of very powerful, specifically Jewish billionaires that was devoted to somewhat below board operations to promote Israel, espionage. Back to a few more gems from Whitney Webb. Former Israeli intelligence official Ari Ben-Menashe, so he's an ex-Mossad spy, alleged that Epstein's sexual blackmail operation was created at Israel's behest specifically to blackmail President Bill Clinton. Ben-Menashe specifically said the following. This is the quote up there. But this part that Whitney added is more concise. As previously mentioned in Chapter 6, Israel had allegedly been behind the effort to blackmail President Carter through his brother Billy Carter. It is also worth noting that Epstein's blackmail operation is believed to have been set up in 1991, the same year the Mega Group was created by Epstein's closest associate, Leslie Wexner. Also, right when Epstein started managing all of his money. Also, right when they bought up Abercrombie and Fitch and started a trafficking ring in Abercrombie and Fitch as well. And oh my God, it's just a conspiracy. These are just made up opinions by Whitney Webb. She's just a conspiracy theorist. Like, you don't even have any evidence. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But these are the sources cited for just that single chapter about Leslie Wexner's philanthropy. That's one chapter. All of those are sources that you can check yourself. So Pam Bondi, It's really cute that you're doing all these media appearances and pretending to care and pretending to be transparent with the American public, but we see through it. And if you were really here to bring criminals to justice, to stop human trafficking, to save the kids that are being trafficked by the tens, hundreds of thousands to this day in America, you have endless places to start. And you could start by just going off of any of the publicly available information about all of Jeffrey Epstein's many co-conspirators and just going and poking around, maybe do an interview, maybe ask a few questions. But something tells me that if the Epstein files implicate Israel, which they do, we're probably not going to get them from Pam.
So with that being said, that's basically a good starting point into the fact that there is an overwhelming trove of places that you can look. Now, people who are unfamiliar with Whitney Webb is actually probably like the most researched individual on this topic. She's been working on this stuff for, I believe, the last like 8, 9, 10 years. House can probably correct me. She's been on this for a very long time. The One Nation Under Blackmail, House also posted too. You can find those books online. You can buy them from Whitney Webb as well. She's also very heavily blacklisted from people. Now, I will say this has also lent her to being not only just blackballed, but the fact that she actually went so hard into it that she has been very anti-Trump, even recently up to the Trump administration. She was one of the first vocal people to sort of pointing out that her thought is that Trump is a Trojan horse, meant to kind of appease and get around this kind of big ordeal. Yeah, House says she's the girl Ryan Dawson, right? And it's kind of extremely impressive what she's been able to compile and put together. That's why I definitely encourage everybody to at least go buy the first volume. One Nation Under Blackmail. Now that is actually, Ian's argument there too. Now, one thing, you can also look at a couple different sources to get you started too. Obviously, reading books that heavily in depth aren't everybody's thing. But Ian Carroll also did a recent podcast with the Twins pod, with the Hodge twins as well. The Hodge twins are somebody who previously have been very, very openly just normal MAGA. They've slowly started lending their ear to this stuff as well too. This is the kind of the same route that you see people like Candace Owens going on. Even crazy enough, it looks like Brett Cooper is also following this path now as well, opening her eyes to this kind of stuff. And again, this kind of seeming following trend that unites all these things together, whether it's going from Ben Shapiro's favorite country to the same people being involved, to the fact of the Les Wexner connection. There's so many different one of these connections that obviously would take a huge amount of time to go through, which is why it's easier to take it down bit by bit. But I would also like to know, what Worrell's opinion is of everything we just went through.
Yeah, sorry, I've been still just trying to get through here, reading chat and stuff like that. You can hear me okay? Still?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. What I know of Whitney Webb's funny is I called her woke on one of my videos a while back. I don't know. She kind of comes off a little untrustworthy to me, but I do understand that she's pretty highly informed on a couple specific things that she focuses on pretty much constantly. I'm pretty sure her YouTube channel either revolves around crypto or this. It's been a while since I looked at it, and I'm pretty sure about like half of her videos are like crypto things. I could be mistaken. I'm curious now.
Yeah, she's anybody who gets too far into that path typically they get smeared, right? They get smeared as either A, being the kind of loopy conspiracy theorist, or B and C being anti-Semitic, or C having Israel derangement syndrome. That seems to be like the common smear against people like this. Kind of like to put it away. Marcus did ask, what did Brett Cooper say? Brett Cooper had a recent tweet. I believe it was in the lines of, "Great that we're not sending money to Ukraine, but now we do it to all countries." And I don't know if she had said that in response to one of the arms deals for Israel, or she just said it in general. but her comment section was loaded with people. And I think she also said something in video. People would have to fact check me if I'm wrong, but that was a tweet that I saw quoted about Brett Cooper. So I could be wrong about Brett, but I think she's still following the same path as Candace Owens. And I think even Ian Carroll had hinted at the fact that behind the scenes on the Twins pod, that Matt Walsh is also on his way out of the Daily Wire.
No, is he? I didn't hear that, but that would be interesting. I haven't been able to keep up with Brett Cooper with all the things that are going on. I do believe that she started making videos on her channel, though, right? She did start doing the regular upload schedule.
I know for a fact she did a couple reels, but I think she might only be on episode 1 or episode 2, something like that.
Okay. I saw that she put out an episode 1, and it actually was well received, which was a concern from a lot of folks in the YouTube world that her subs, the people that were flocking to her channel to sub and show support, weren't actually going to click her videos. In the percent that YouTube would see as where the algorithm says, hey, your subs are clicking on this video. It's a good video. We'll show it to more people. So that's good. I wasn't sure if she continued to upload or not. I don't get updates from her channel on my main page. I think it's just because I'm subbed to so many people. But
yeah, because the algorithm would detect it as being botted or being astroturfed if there's no content generating the follower count. It would view it as someone's getting sent there from a third party source, and that's why I think he was even the quartering was jump in order and say, hey, do that as fast as you can.
Right. Because I think the way the algorithm tries to play it is if it'll show your videos to the people that are subbed to your channel, and if you don't get around 8 to 10% clicks, then it won't show it to the rest of the world, essentially. To an extent, of course, the algorithm has a mind of its own, but
yeah.
But just me made the point that says, I've got to say, I find it very interesting that Atlas said that Pam Bondi was the AG in Florida whenever Epstein was getting away with all the shenanigans in Florida, and now this is happening. Yeah, it's not a good look for Pam Bondi, and unfortunately, she was looking really good until this whole scenario kind of popped up. At least in my opinion, I didn't really have much to critique until this, and now it's kind of turned into a head scratcher as far as what's going on with the Epstein files. Will we ever see them? I did see that. Who was it? Somebody came out. It was a woman. I can't remember who it was. Came out and said that. Was it? I can't remember. It's right on the tip of my tongue. But the Epstein files are coming out in volumes, essentially. It was Alina Habba, Trump's
Trump's
lawyer, and she was I can't remember what show she was on. I think she was maybe talking to Pierce Morgan, and she was saying that she saw not the actual files, but what she understands is that she knew that Pam Bondi had the files, and what was in them was alarming. She did mention flight logs and some of this stuff that we already knew that did come out. I'm still waiting for the alarming part, the part that nobody knew. Some of it's just confirming what we did already know. But I'm still kind of in the wait and see, have my fingers crossed, hoping that we see more. But I just think the reality is it's been so many years. It's been in the hands of Trump's FBI, who was working against him in his first term. It's been in the hands for 4 years of Biden's FBI, who nobody trusts. Basically, everybody pretty much confirmed, or everybody pretty much agrees that the Biden FBI was not on the up and up. Granted, there's people in the FBI that are fine, that are good, but the leadership is what I'm really talking about. And then back in the hands of Trump, and so that's a lot of hands for files to go through, and who knows at this point if anyone was removing names from it, removing files from it, or even adding names and files to it. You know what I mean? It would be it would have been a good tactic for the Biden-led FBI to try to add as many Trump and Trump associates to that list and make it look as real as possible. So now it's almost to the point where, you know, what, 6 years later, I'm not sure exactly how long it's been since he didn't kill himself, but um, it just, I don't know. It's like a game of
Right.
telephone almost at this point. I get it. There's hard files, there's videotapes, and I'm sure some of that stuff is still around. It's just probably, in my opinion, a fraction of what they originally got, and the people that were protected all the way. And that's the other thing. That's the point that I brought up on the last show was, yeah, you'd think bring these people to justice, but then what happened was when Trump's leadership got a hold of these files, got a hold of the videotapes, everything they seized from Epstein's homes and the island, that now they have a lot of leverage on very powerful people. The system is already in place to blackmail and control the power. And, like Obama said, never waste a good crisis, never let a crisis go to waste or whatever, right? And so
Right.
now all of a sudden, the power is in the hands of corrupt FBI, whereas before it was in the hands of corrupt Epstein and whoever he was working for, whether that be Mossad or whatever it was. Now they have leverage, and now what can they get out of this without, we'll protect you, but now you work for us type of thing. Like when the new mob boss takes over and his crew goes around to all the little shops in town and says, now you work for us. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's kind of what I feel like actually happened. And in that process, there was probably, more deals that were made, more guarantees, more protection. All these people on the list, assuming allegedly are more of the elite type people. And so I can't remember who it was that made this point earlier today. I heard it might have been Andrew Tate when I was listening to his interview with Patrick Bet David, which was really good. Sometimes Andrew Tate really nails it, and he nailed that interview. It was like 2.5 hours, and he really there's some good sound bites that came out of that. We're actually going to play one of those clips in a little while. And we might play two of them just because they're. I love what Andrew Tate said, honestly. So I'm not like the biggest Andrew Tate fan, as you guys know, but he's winning me over, and the interview today won me over quite a bit. And so those billionaires might have made some phone calls, and this is me quoting poorly Andrew Tate. Maybe made some phone calls to the Trump administration or Pam Bondi and said, "Hey, look, I may or may not have been on these lists. What can I do? What can I do to make sure this information doesn't go public? Yeah, I'm not the best person, potentially, so to speak, but also do look at all the good that I'm doing, that I've done, that's going on because of me. And if you lock me up, all that crap goes away." And so then they have to weigh their options and be selective over who they protect, or do they protect anybody or everybody. And at this point, like I said, we're 6 years down the road, two different, it's Trump, Biden, Trump, but really three different, uh, presidential, regimes out from the discovery. And I think everybody's coming to the consensus that, yeah, we got a little too overhyped and should have been more skeptical this time around over the potential news of the list dropping. And maybe we should, focus more on, unfortunately, but, because everybody wants that list, and I think everybody's pretty much in unison, wants justice for the victims of all those crimes and everything like that. But then also, like, what else is important that we can maybe get, that maybe we can get, with the 9/11 stuff. Maybe we can get some stuff from J6. I don't know. There's other things that I'd
Right.
like to see information on as well. So
Yeah, no, I think you made a lot of good points there. I actually wrote down a couple of things I wanted to make sure I responded to. The first would be, if anyone's not followed me, followed the show for quite some time, might have missed it, but I've actually never been for Pam Bondi. I always thought there was something fishy with Pam Bondi, not even just for the fact that she's a woman. I actually reported on the fact that with the Law of Self Defense, which is a YouTube channel, a decently sized X page as well, actually re-highlighted during her, not her nomination, but when she was announced, that this was actually a terrible pick, but not for the reasons of Jeffrey Epstein. If you dig in a bit to Pam Bondi there and her involvement with the Trayvon Martin case, there was actually not an AG, but there was a DA. It was either a DA or it was a specific prosecutor who was unwilling to actually take that to trial based on the evidence that he had seen. And because he was unwilling to do so, Pam Bondi actually unseated him and took another county DA or another county prosecutor and made them in charge of the case because she so desperately wanted the Trayvon Martin case prosecuted. But with knowing what we all know now, George Zimmerman, I mean, based on the evidence that we had, that case was a massive fluke. It was clearly astroturfed to all hell, and it was drummed up in a way that started a lot of the BLM, the Black Lives Matter. I can remember very specifically listening to the radio stations during that era, where we end up getting all of these kind of like bits and pieces of the edited phone calls that they did. I mean, people probably remember that as well. CNN, MSNBC, all of them kind of floated all of this very, very edited and doctored, not only just like not the video footage, but the actual call logs that they had, stitched them together to make them sound as if, it was worse than what it was. So just based on that alone, as well as her kind of very pro gun control idea, she's floated a lot of different kind of legislations to get guns out of Florida people's hands. She did that for a while. She actually was in Trump's ear about that specifically when it did relate to taking people's guns for an extended period of time, and also finding other ways they could get ahead of it as well. So even if someone was like arrested, that way they could kind of confiscate their guns. A lot of things with Pam Bondi that I definitely don't agree with and definitely aren't very overtly conservative. But the second thing too, go more specifically to the Epstein files themselves. What we got with the influencer kind of parading around was we had even community notes calling out DC Drano and Chad Prather that they both had a word for word identical post from each other within like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then eventually DC Drano ended up like, he put another tweet out that was like, he said that Chad Prather like copied everything that he had put out. And then, Chad Prather like a day later said, well, actually I had meant to quote something different. I didn't realize I posted the entire text. And it's like,
yeah, that post, that response from Chad Prather was really weird. It's like you had a different one you were going to copy. The whole point is I think you missed it. The whole point is y'all were copying each other. You copied the wrong one. Like it's almost like a confirmation that you did exactly what we thought you were doing.
Right, exactly. Like it was coordinated.
Copied and it was the wrong one. What?
And it was him, Lives of TikTok, DC Drano, Chad Prather, Swig, Liz Wheeler. Mike Strinovich ended up not posting something, but there's a couple others, all those who got that binder, who posted word for word, nearly identical posts from each other. Now, Chad and DC were the identical ones, but it all said the same line of like most transparent administration ever. They were clearly trying to get across as if like what had happened on that day was a sign that this administration is just so, oh, look how good this administration is. But what they got was some of the worst blowback I've ever seen, because people had pointed out we already had all this information. You guys just, paraded around with binders. They argued that the only reason they stood in front of cameras is because the press was there. But again, these are all the same people who are very anti-mainstream press, but all of a sudden today it was a different case. Like all these things that just like don't make sense. So that whole situation just like was like, yeah, I'm not buying it. I think you guys were actually in on it. You were done to actually disseminate the information from influencers rather than a different source. And as a coordinated kind of sentiment giving, narrative kind of control, public relations idea going behind there. Now, when it comes to the actual editing of the Epstein files, I think this also needs to be pointed out as well. With all digital kind of documents, what you end up getting is the fact that there is hard evidence, not hard evidence, but hard data that shows, when a document was created, when a document was faxed, when a document was scanned. All of these things goes inside. Now, I could be getting it wrong. Probably a better IT guy can say that, but it's either metadata, but there's different kind of origin points of data that you can find. And with the majority of the Epstein documents, these aren't as if they are Word documents or they're just typed onto a piece of paper in Microsoft Word. These are more so scanned documents. So there will be origins, and you can probably, what we might not have is the actual kind of trace of who had it in what hands. But you'll be able to verify based on other data like that to say this document was scanned in 2018 in this office in this building, or at least from this specific printer or fax machine, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the bigger thing here about the editing and changing things is, I think, in my opinion, with something that is so hot to handle, so dangerous to handle, I think all administrations chose not to touch it outside of a very select few of people. Because if you even for the slightest bit, there's someone who is willing to whistleblow, if they see perchance, for whatever reason, that Bill Gates' name might be on that list in some form they were never meant to see, no administration is willing to take that chance, especially not knowing who it might implicate when they're not ready to release all the information. So I think that's why we're in the situation we are, is because so few people probably have had their hands on it. You know, I think Pam Bondi never had the files on her desk in the first place. I think she either you can believe her if you want, but I think she had said that, you know, she was lied to by a staffer. I think both her and Kash both said that. Or maybe they had just hoped that this would not have had the blowback that it did. Maybe thought it was gonna be a little bit quieter. Either way, you know, you can make up your mind about that too. But I think ultimately I lean in the direction of something like of that level and magnitude definitely wouldn't have been openly in a bunch of different FBI guys' hands, because it's not like when Joe Biden gets voted in that every FBI agent who was there when Trump was there all of a sudden get fired and now all brand new whole FBI department comes in. This is just not how it works. So there's guys who've been there for 15, 20 years. You don't know what scale of these guys may be like, this is too much for me. And they call out and they go, actually, I'm blowing the whistle now. And so I think on that regard, they made sure that they kept that chain of not chain of command, but the chain of passure of where the files went to very, very, very limited. And so I think there's a few things that point to we probably still could pretty easily verify if the documents are real. And if they're edited, there's plenty of guys online, even YouTubers, who can go online and be like, yeah, I can tell this was photoshopped here and here and here, so I can tell based on the way this frame and these pixels look. And so there's all these different ways we could probably find out how things got doctored. Yeah, custody. Thank you, House. I always forget the chain of custody thing, but probably multiple ways that you could actually figure that out. But I think, you know, the point stands. Obviously, try to get as much as we can out of this administration. TNT says, you know, why was I surprised at that? I'm not surprised at all of it. I think I was surprised by how overtly they're willing to do it, because to me it was like a slap in the face. It was like, and the reason why they got that pushback, I think, is because most people really thought, we're like, you think we're this effing stupid? You
Right.
think that we're seriously this stupid? That like,
Well,
that's why I think they got the pushback. It was so I was shocked they did something so publicly and easily like rebukable, and that's where I
right.
kind of did with those last couple things.
And that's what happened to me when I saw these people coming out saying it, and then people put it all on the screenshot next to each other, and it was like almost word for word, or at least a couple lines of the statement was copied word for word. Um, it reminded me of what we've seen over the last 8 years from the mainstream media, where they all come out and say Trump, the threat to democracy, and then you see the other one pop up, and then next thing you know, you have 15 people from mainstream media all saying in unison, Trump, the threat to democracy. And it's like, well, now we're doing it. It's like I developed the eye for it while, watching the lefty media. And then all of a sudden that sense recognized in their posts. Just me mentions that she gets what we're saying, but did we notice the front of those binders that they each um, had the words "the most transparent administration ever" written on it? I didn't notice that. If I did, it's something that I might have forgot. So maybe that's a contributing factor. And maybe it was repeated to them when they were handed the files and said, "Don't forget, this is the most transparent uh, administration ever." And then they all just kind of were essentially brainwashed, like they got implanted on their head, like what they used to do in the movies or whatever. They'd show popcorn or whatever and make people thirsty during the movies, and subliminal messaging. Maybe there was some subliminal messaging that got to them, but I don't know. Like I said, it came off to me like what we've recognized in the mainstream media, and of course, that leaves a bad taste. And so maybe they
Right.
should have done a better job coordinating and just saying, "Hey, let's make sure that we're not saying the same thing." But I don't think that they ever really would have guessed that they would have done that unless it was intentional. I don't know. It's a weird
Right.
scenario, really. Like I didn't expect to see this out of the riot. I mean, I am glad to see that these people are the ones that got the files. Typically, we see big files like this be handed over to Fox News or some big you know mainstream media source. And so the fact that the White House has given press passes to independent media, trusting the independent media with this story, is a change that I welcome and I'm happy to see. But yeah, it's just
Yeah, but none of it's gonna be, coordinated the same exact way. It gave me
yeah,
that feeling of like I can't remember who made that video, but it's a great one, of all of the same news anchors saying the same lines about COVID during that 2020 era, where there's like 50 different news channels on screen and they're all saying the exact same like paragraph, like as if they're reading it straight from a paper. And so it's the coordination, it's narrative control. It's a way to ensure, that this is what's being put out into, hoping that all the younger and smaller influencers all adopt these things, right? Because everyone builds on each other. So I'm sure there's a lot of people in the wing who are trying to grow an effort post on their accounts of social media that probably look up to DC Drano, who aren't fully into like the know, or they just really like DC Drano for whatever reason. And so you expect those are the same thing. Same thing with Libs of TikTok, Liz Wheeler, Swig, Cernovich, all of those guys. And so that's kind of the point, right? Is garner all these reply guys, get them to say the same thing, and then hope that filters its way down. Because I would imagine that they were expecting, and as dumb as it is, that we'd be sitting here today going, "Man, this is the most transparent administration ever." Like, I can't believe they released the Epstein file, guys, as if like none of us had any kind of prior knowledge to what was going on. And so I
right,
think that's where you kind of get that little eat up there, and
yeah.
it gets people kind of upset. Um,
Michael
I
asked
do,
who's Tyler. That's me.
yeah, that's funny. I did see that. Yeah, welcome to the show, guy.
Let's see here. Marcus Young says all these people are compromised. We need to wake up. We truly don't know these people on a personal level. We only need to judge them by their actions. Cash, Pam, Dan, etc. Yeah. I'm the one that I'm liking the most right now is Dan Bongino, just because he's given up a lot. He's basically not going to be able to do his daily show, from what I understand, and he's making like I want to say I heard 3 million a year from that show, but honestly, I think it would probably be more considering he's like the #1 show on Rumble and stuff like that. But
Right. Well, I think that's kind of the trap that the right wing is falling into. This kind of a code of personality. Because someone I liked for the last couple of years said this thing, so I should automatically agree with it. And I think Marcus is right there. It doesn't matter. Like, these people are there to serve a job. They were either hired or brought in or were voted upon for doing specific things. And the moment they don't do those specific things, it's like you're failing at your job. You're failing the American people. And I think ultimately it's something on this level, this magnitude, it bears even more kind of crushing weight to it, because everyone knows that there is probably very, very influential, very, very rich people who have gotten away with some of the most egregious crimes that have afflicted young people, and namely probably young women and young boys. That is the absolute lowest of the low of moral degeneracy, as well as even those who are super liberal view that as being like outright, extremely damnable, right? Like, you're going to burn in
Mhm.
hell for that because you did such dangerous things. Even if they don't believe in Christ, it's kind of like the feeling they have, the sentiment there. um, and you just begin to lose social cohesion, especially this early into an administration. Not continuing that momentum, kind of killing it with this kind of stuff, is ultimately how you get people to entirely backfire on you, turn on you. You lose support in the mainstream, and ultimately it lends itself to getting even worse off society, one that can't sustain itself, especially in a time where we need at least some level of agreement upon what we need to do moving forward. This kind of stuff was only going to, shoot you in the foot and hold everything back.
right. Evil Elmo says we had the knowledge because we watch alternative media, not mainstream media. A lot of people knew none of it. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, Unfortunately, alternate media is just not big enough yet. But I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm glad the White House is recognizing alternate media, though. That's for sure. I do want to tend to agree with TNT when he says, if anyone has ever been in a court case, you should know it takes a long time. Be more patient. I believe it'll come out. And, I'm trying to. Just the problem is Pam Bondi, and maybe she just was being sensational when she was asked that question about the Epstein files whenever she was like, oh, well, I have them on my desk, and didn't really think it through and realized that now people are going to expect it like right away. Like, okay, well, now that you have it, give it to us. I don't know if she realized that was going to be the natural reaction from people. To me, it's like, you got it, release it. There's no reason to hold on to it, right?
Right.
The American taxpayer demands to know, right? We need to know this type of information when we go as we move forward in elections, as we proceed through life and make decisions about who and where we're going to buy our products from. And we paid for all the investigations, we paid for everything, all this data collection. So hand it on over.
Well, same thing with Kash Patel, right? He
Mhm.
ran on all of this stuff. I mean, I can remember a famous sit down with the fact that with Glenn Beck, where he was like bragging about, oh, I've seen everything that's in there. I've read those files, promising that he's going to release things on day one. Day one of being confirmed in there as director of the FBI. That's where it's just like, again, if we're going to hold all the left and everyone else to account of not being coordinated, not having independent thought, and just going with what the administration and those who are controlled tell them to do, as well as keeping people held to the promises they make to the individuals who pushed for them to be in there, who donated for them to be in there, who spoke to that, is like, that's when it's like you got to either hold the principles that you find true, or understand that you're just saying things because the right person is saying them out loud, and you just agree with that person, not the other people when they do it. There's a little bit of hypocrisy in there as well. But again, I've always been on the very fringe of even supporting Trump for those reasons too. Especially because obviously I'm a Christian nationalist, so like I only really agree on like very pragmatic things with the Trump administration, anyways. So to see this is just even more ammunition for me to be like, yeah, what was the point of even getting you in there, right? Not to say he's not done good things, not that he's done right things, right? I think the great stuff with Zelensky was that it's funny, even if it is maybe it was drama to get people to forget about the Epstein files. It's still a funny video to watch with him, kind of being like, oh, Zelensky, you're this small, huh? That's kind of like how the moment kind of came across, and it's like, very cathartic to kind of view that too.
Well, it's nice to see Trump in that instance to put Zelensky in the same place that the American people have him.
Right.
It's basically like there's been this bully factor that comes from the left that if you don't support Ukraine, you're pro Putin, right? And so you're always pro Putin anytime you question Ukraine. Well, it's gotten to the point where it's like, fuck it, yeah, I'm pro Putin. I'm so anti-Ukraine that you can just call me pro Putin. I don't give a shit anymore. And as long as my priority is where are my American dollars going and how much are being wasted on this nonsense. And it was nice to see that. I thought it was so funny. It sucks that we couldn't do the show on Saturday because I wanted to go through a lot of the stuff that everybody's been going through as well. He showed up. The first thing Trump does is comment on, oh, he dressed up when he wasn't dressed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
he was patting him at the door. Yeah.
Yeah. And just everything. And then whenever Zelensky crossed the line and basically projected, you're safe over here across the ocean and it's going to affect you. And Trump was like, you don't know what it's going to do. And kind of stepped in and shut him down. I don't think that was a deflection. I don't at all from the Epstein files, because this is this whole an issue in itself.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So I don't think that was like, we need to come up with something to distract. I think that was literally Trump just dealing with one of the many things he deals with on a daily basis. Sorry, I got an injured chicken back here. She's trying to walk around on her hurt her foot.
That's funny.
He's falling over, I guess. But
No, I thought that was good, but to pick up on what you had said earlier, right? There's like everything has this dichotomy to it. You say one thing about, well, Russia this, and it's like, wow, dude, like you love Russia, you hate Ukrainians. Like, what are you, a psychopath? You Putin lover? Like,
right,
they've done this to every single issue. I mean, that extends to
yeah,
literally everything.
yeah,
Same with like transgenders, same with race, same with the Middle East, same with all of them, right? You say one thing, you try to walk some line, and understand like that's the fight, right? They want to
yeah,
pull you to one side or the other, so you have like a very one-sided, very nuanced understanding, or very non-nuanced understanding, but a very aligned and biased understanding of what's going on.
right,
That's why it's so toxic, because that's what it always kind of devolves to. You try to say one thing about like, well, like Tucker Carlson, for example, pointing out the fact that Zelensky is also a dictator. Like both him and Putin are operating as
right,
dictators. Zelensky with the martial law, and then you have
right,
Piers Morgan being like, well, here's actually the reason why I ignore all of my definitions for a dictator and I like Zelensky anyways. It's like that's the whole
right,
point. It's like there's
right,
no principle there. It's actually like he's just the right person doing the thing that I want him to do, regardless of whatever principle I have. And that's
right.
the real battle.
And like to your point, where Pierce Morgan right there, he'll say and parrot that Putin invaded a sovereign country. It's like, yeah, and I don't give a shit about it. I
Right.
don't give two shits about Ukraine. I'm sorry, not
Right.
sorry. Like,
Well,
it's just to the point where it's like, okay, cry me a river and tell me, like, why do I care about Ukraine? Why do I, like, tell me some reasons why I don't, a sovereign country doesn't mean anything to me whenever I have open borders and, the levels of corruption within our own, uh, like FBI, our government policing system. And
right.
I don't understand, but the one thing about this whole interaction at the White House, to me, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. You know what I mean? It was that, like, finally is that drunk moment where somebody finally says what everybody was thinking or whatever, and it's out there. And now Zelensky knows, the American people know, the American people know that Zelensky knows, and Zelensky knows that the American people know that we don't need him, he needs us. He lost. It's just like what Trump said. You don't hold any cards, but with us you hold the cards. You hold all the cards. And
Yep.
then Trump followed up after this and said that Zelensky wants to use us in our allegiance as a bargaining chip to continue the war, to try to get something out of it, when the reality is the war just needs to stop. If the American, if Biden's regime, uh, alongside with NATO, wouldn't have propped up Zelensky for 3 years, this incursion, whatever it is, would have saved millions of lives. No doubt would have saved millions of lives. Um, Putin would probably maybe be a little bit further in than he is now. But it all boils down to, I don't care. I
Right.
just don't care. I just don't care anymore about Ukraine, and so I love that now it's like, Trump has gone on, or not Trump, but we gone on, we cut off their funding to rebuild their, like, roads or their electrical grid or whatever like that. And then from what I understand, and I don't know if this is true, but what this has led to, and there's so many layers to this, and y'all might disagree, but this is something that I wanted to ask on the show to see what you guys think. Um, right after Trump kicked Zelensky out of the White House, apparently Russia came forward with a minerals deal. Now, like I said, I don't know how, I didn't look into this very far, but if Russia presents the United States with a mineral deal that's better and can still lead to, ending the war over there, um, what do we need NATO for? Like, right now, the way that NATO is set up, in my opinion, was that the United States and NATO basically, combined, outnumber the amount of nukes that Russia has. It's just boiled down to that, as simple as that.
Right.
And I believe it started in like 1949 to oppose the Soviet Union. We also promised back then that we wouldn't move an inch eastward, which now they've moved many, many miles eastward, right? And so that agreement's already been kind of broken by our side. But like, why do we even need NATO at this point? First off, we got two options. We can cut off NATO, take all the money that we spend on NATO to apply it to our nuclear facilities, right? And build up our own stockpile to where the United States rivals Russia's nuclear capabilities just on our own. But second of all, what if we decide we want to have an alliance or a deal with Russia, because Russia is the closest country to the United States, technically. It's just across the Bering Sea from Alaska. It's, there are some benefits to a trade partnership between Russia and the United States. And not only that, Russia leaving BRICS would be good for the future of the United States, because that basically takes away one of the two powerhouses from the BRICS alliances. It dismantles what China is trying to build, which is something they've openly said that by like 2030 they want to be controlling the world. They want to have, the basically be the world police that America has kind of built itself into. And it's just like, what would be so bad about the United States leaving NATO, who has a lot of baggage, right? They don't pay anything. Apparently their soldiers all are wussies. I mean, I hate to say it like that. I hate to disparage, anybody that's willing to go step in battle and everything like that. But if from what I've learned, the United States soldier is worth multiple European soldiers as far as damage they can do and intelligence and just everything. And apparently Russian soldiers are pretty top notch as well. Look at what they've been able to do the last 3 years and countering NATO essentially through this proxy war. And it's like, what if we just partner with Russia, have our own trade deals, and say, oh, what are you going to do? Partner with a communist? What do you think the CCP is? Like, I don't know. It's the standard. It's just so weird. It's this Democrat thing that they've been putting forth for years, that Russia is the bad guy, when Trump was out there saying in his first term that China is our biggest rival. Russia's not really a threat. And then, they went and did the whole Russian collusion scenario where it's like, no, Russia is trying to impact our elections. They're way worse. And it's like, and we don't think any other country is trying to impact our elections. Also proven to be false, that Russia was working with Trump, all that type of stuff, So it's like, they want Russia to be the big bad villain, but they might actually be one of the most ideal allies in the world right now for the United States.
Right.
I don't know, man. It's one of those scenarios where we might need the big shakeup.
Well, everything that you listed off there would require that America act in its own interest. Like everything you laid out there would require that America, not only as American citizens voting for their own interests, but that the American politicians act in America's own interest. And everything we see with NATO, as well as it comes to most of anything we do internationally, has never been in America's interest. Now, when it comes to things like soft power, you can go with the argument from Mike Benz. Obviously, there's some clear, trade-off there by obviously being involved in internationals, not being completely isolationist. But in terms of what you're saying with the Russia there, right? What if we got a better deal with Russia on the table? What should be stopping us at all from outright saying, you know what, actually, Ukraine's our enemies now. It's like Civilization 6. You just decided to whim. Now these guys are my enemies. I don't care how long this alliance has been in here, because that would require you on a whim to not feel guilted by previous interactions, but just always be acting in your own interest.
Right.
And especially when it comes to these kind of topics too, a lot of it's burdened down just by the very, what's the right word? Maybe like millennial and just like, I don't know, neutered liberal idea of what we have about violence, which is like, obviously we should not want violence, but to also act as if it's not a reality of the world we live in, it's also just like, that's retarded. You can't especially with nations like Russia, if they're our enemy and they're united in alliance with how many multinational nations against them, and then we start going, hey, we're going to put missiles here, actually, like he oh, look, like we're a couple miles closer now, Russia, and then expect them to be like, at a certain point, their people be like, hey, dude, the rest of the world thinks they can just bully us around. Like, what do you expect, right? I mean, it's very simple, obvious conclusion. You think like they're just going to sit there and fold and be like, yeah, okay, like all the leaders in power need to back away because America, otherwise it might get violent. At a certain point, these people look at it and they go, our way of life is being threatened. And if we don't do these specific things, we may be even in a worse position. Our children's children may be in a worse position. We may be getting forced into doing things just from soft power. No, we can't let that slide. And then they behave the way they behave. And then everyone here goes, oh my gosh, like Russia doing all this crazy stuff. It's like, man, you can't poke a bear in its eyeball and expect not at a certain point it's going to rip your arm off. That's just the way that it is. But to have a nuanced position like that is just lost in the mainstream media, because it's either you want world peace and everyone should behave nicely, or you have this kind of, it's anyone who says anything about, well, I understand why they did that. It's, wow, you guys are super evil. These evil people. Wow, you like how all these Ukrainians are dying. It's just like there has to be nuance. Anything that loses that nuance or being an understanding of a reality is just, that's how you get retarded opinions. And then these people build their opinion structure set off of these very retarded ideas. And that's where you get the kind, iteration of where that is now too. But again, it all does boil back down to like America needs to act in its own interest. We shouldn't be a part of NATO. NATO's been this globalist kind of jihad for some time now. And House brought it up earlier, but our soft exports now is gay, lesbian, trans garbage. That's what we sell.
Right.
Like we send $30,000 for that one gay Pakistani guy to make a transgender book, or send some to Ireland so they can have a gay transgender opera. And it's like, what's the trade-off there? I would imagine most people in all those different, first world countries that are less kind of keen to being super homosexualized see that stuff from America and they're like, dude, they might probably resent us for that. They're like, wait, you're telling me the reason why all this stuff is gay over here is because America's donating stuff to that? And then expect the rest of the world to like not resent us for pushing all that stuff on top of you. And again, it has a lot of similarities to what we saw that led to the Second World War. People got very extremely tired of degeneracy stuff being pushed on them. People would do a lot of things, and so you got to think of it too. I mean, how long do you think that the average Christian American would stand for his child to get sent to a school that would nonstop push homosexuality down their throats?
Right.
And if it comes from an international force, I think that's an entirely different question, because now it's not your own people. It's it's them over there doing it. And that's an easier person to say, that's my enemy. They keep sending that stuff over here. Whatever it takes, dude, make it stop, cut off relations, cut off ties.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that I agree with Trump where he said that I'm glad that we did this in front of the media. The world needs to see the way that Zelensky is acting on the public's, behind closed doors, but he needs to be exposed in the public. And so I'm glad that all went down. Not only was I entertained for a good 24, 48-hour period, I still am, honestly. I could go back and watch that whole 6-minute clip right now and thoroughly enjoy it. The most amazing thing to me, though, out of this whole scenario is that how so many people on the left can watch the same exact exchange and think that Zelensky made Trump and JD Vance in a 2-on-1 look bad. It's like, you really think Zelensky won that argument? You really don't care about the disrespect of how he came into the Oval Office not wearing a suit, yet he wore a suit to fucking sorry, I'm cussing. He wore a suit to go and get the little piece of the uncensored me. To go campaign for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He wore a suit he wore it to the World Economic Forum. It's like, we know the guy has suits. We know the guy. I don't care if he's at war. It's not like he's sitting in the bunker with his soldiers all day or anything like that. As a matter of fact, to like what Evil Elmo said, and some other folks have said in the chat, the dude is a dictator. He's declared martial law. He's put off elections the people don't have a voice. And I'll tell you a little personal experience. We just bought that electric car last week that you guys know of, right? And we had with that electric car purchase, we had somebody, they paid for the free install of the charger at the house, right? So the guy come out to the house, and I'm picking up, the dude's got a Russian accent, hardcore. And so I'm like, I'm gonna pick this dude's brain. I'm gonna find out what he knows, what he thinks.
Mm.
He was very anti-Biden. I asked him. I started off. I said, "Where are you from?" He goes, "Originally." I was like, "Yeah," and he told me Ukraine, and I'm like, "Oh, because you sound like you got a Russian accent." And I know there's a lot of cross dialect, or not cross dialect, but a lot of people in the region. Some of them speak both languages. Some people speak Russian. Some people speak Ukrainian. But he told me that he speaks Russian because he's from the side of the country where they're at war. And I said, "Do the people really?" I asked him. I said, "Do the people really care if they're in Russia or Ukraine? I mean, their house is still right there. Like, do they really care? They're like that concerned?" He said, "No. The people on the east side of the country, they want the war to end, and they don't care if it's Russia or Ukraine. Most of them speak Russian anyways." So he said, honestly, it kind of seemed like he was saying that they would prefer to be Russian, right? He said the people on the west side of the country, where there's no heat, are all like, "Yeah, we got to defeat Putin. We got to get Putin out of there." And they're not facing anything in their homes or anything like that. So I found that interesting, and it's just like it's almost the people without a dog in the fight are the ones that are perpetuating um, the continuation of the war. And it's like if you ask the people that are actually involved, they're like, "No, end it right away."
Right.
And
So the
so
ones
it's
that are sweating, dying, and watching all their boys get killed off.
right.
Think
Well,
about
they're the
women
ones
like,
getting kidnapped, walking their dogs. Have you seen all these videos? Now, I
yeah,
don't
with the
know. I don't
conscription.
know if these videos are really what they're claiming to be, but people in vans pulling up to grown men who are out walking their dogs, out just walking down the street, going up to their home, smoke a cigarette outside or whatever, running up, grabbing these dudes, throwing them in vans, leaving the dogs that they're walking just on the side of the road, which that one really bothered me when I saw that. I was just like, dang, that's crazy. You know what I mean? It's like complete
Right.
disregard for human life and families. Throwing people in these things, and then forcing them to go to the front lines. I saw another video of a kid that was, he couldn't have been older than 20. He was locked up, looked like he was in like a county jail or something, and he was sitting there telling them that, "Look, I'm just gonna go die. You can't make me fight. Like you can't force me to fight. I don't believe in this, war, blah blah blah, and I'm just gonna go to the front lines and die." And it's like, this is crazy. Is that called conscription? You said?
Yeah, conscription, right. They're like they're going out of their way to actually grab them off the street. I mean,
Right.
even worse, we've had this their entire war. Um, but we saw early on a lot of men they'd opposed that. And what we ended up seeing was street sign after street sign in the middle of the streets in areas there in Ukraine, were men who were actually tied and depantsed in the freezing cold, strung up on stop signs and telephone poles. To now recently, there's a couple videos that had come out where they're doing this to mothers who are protecting their sons. There's a
Hmm.
couple mothers who were tied and bound to stop signs in public areas where they had taken the mother's clothes off, like ripped their pants off, taken their shirts off, and made them stand, hands bound to the top, legs bound to the bottom, because they were doing things such as protecting their sons from like hiding them from being conscripted.
Dang.
So it's clearly kind of very dark energy behind there, but obviously because they need all the men they can get. And I was going to say too, I can't remember what the specific ratio is, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But it's something along the lines of I think it's from women who are aged 18 to it's like 18 to 27, or maybe a shorter range than that. Now outnumber the men in the Ukraine like 2 to 1. It's either like 2 to 1 or like 3 to 1. It's like it's something so
Dang.
insane because they have killed so many of their men in that generation span that there's bound to be very, very high social repercussions from events like that. Um, it's a super dark picture to look at as well too, which is why
Yeah.
ultimately the overbearing idea is the war should have ended some time ago. It's only been propagated and continued this long because the United States, as well as other countries, has sent there and let its hands there, sending over mercenary groups as well to take care of things too. So the war outright, you just let Russia dominate it. I mean, I don't even care if Ukraine fails to be a nation anymore. I mean, you have to
Right.
let the fighting stop. And the easiest way for that to happen is to force Russia, or not force Russia, but force Ukraine to lay down its arms, stop fighting a meaningless fight, cut all the aid over to there, have all the nations retrieve everything that they can, that they've been given, that they can pull back, and just put sanctions. I mean, at this point, it's got to be war crimes, right? You're fighting a nonsensical, kamikaze war where you are blatantly sending people to die using other countries' money. It's got to be over.
Right. I mean, Ukraine is outnumbered in population 4-1, 4+1. I believe it's like 30 some million in their population versus like 144 million or something like that in Russia. I looked it up last week. But who knows if that number for Ukraine was counted before the war, middle of the war. You know what I mean? So that might be fewer as they're killing off the men. There's this perspective from the left. It's well, I think I'd say it's from the left. Maybe it's from the elites, but that Russia is the enemy, so we're weakening them in this proxy war by using Ukrainians to be the meat grinder, essentially, so to speak, for weakening Russia. And it's just like, so wait, so you got a Ukrainian flag in your bio, but you're okay with it because you're weakening Russia, but you're okay with the destruction of the men of the country of Ukraine. Like it's just crazy. It's ripe for being raided, burnt down, and plundered at this point. Like if you have no men left, like just think of think of Braveheart or whatever, the old movies where they come through, they kill the men in battle, uh, then they go through and they burn the little village down and take all the women and kids into slavery for whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like they're literally like doing that with the entire country of Ukraine, and it's sad, it's pathetic. And anytime like we said earlier, anytime you come out and question it or anything like that, you're pro Putin all of a sudden, and it's no, I'm just being America first, right? I don't care about Ukraine. As a matter of fact, all that applies to the Middle East as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You know,
Well, speaking of insane, did you see this video? I have it shared if you want to put it on stage. This guy, it's similar to like the Krasensteins when we were talking about like the liberals, who, like what you had said
okay,
earlier,
yeah,
where two different people can watch the same thing and then coming away with the most extremely different opinions of this. Now, when I saw this, it made me more mad than anything. Ultimately, because I'm watching a guy who's older than me cry on a TikTok video. It's
this is
so
so
it's so
crazy.
outright pathetic, man.
Yeah, before we play that, I want to just read this from John. The one thing that Putin haters never talk about is the fact that if Putin wanted to, he could have flattened Ukraine in no time. He doesn't want to annihilate them. Right. Ultimately, they are a part of the former Soviet Union, so there is like a kinship essentially between the two, and you know, Putin definitely doesn't want to turn it into a nuclear wasteland, for one, but also there is some restraint there. We saw it from the very beginning when he used all of their broken old tanks and things to do their initial surge, and then they didn't have very good results out of it, but which is crazy because like everybody on the left and the mainstream media was like, look, we're gonna win this, which there's no we, it was Ukraine. Is gonna win this. Look at how they handled, uh, Putin's initial onslaught or initial attack. I was like, yeah, he was using old stuff. Like he's basically wasting their good weapons to blow up their old tanks and everything. It's like just wait till he moves in with the good stuff. Wait till you know what I mean? It's a good point there, John. And I see TNT mentioned that he's fighting with gloves on, and it's obvious. But yeah, let's go ahead and play that.
Yeah, I'm glad it's the shorter version because I couldn't stand watching the whole like 4 minute thing he made. But here's to make sure the volume's okay. All right, let's let it rip. Oh, I was muted the whole time, wasn't I?
Yeah, it was muted.
But there's like, there's music there, so I don't want to play it.
Yeah, yeah. You get the. I think people get the point. This grown man is like bawling.
Well, he says like things along the lines of like he wishes he could just be next to Zelensky. Like I wish I could be there with him for him right now.
Like little spoon or big spoon?
Right, right. Probably even worse. And he said like he hates this country, and it's man, it's so. I cannot explain nor articulate how much hatred courses through my veins when I see just like this abysmal behavior from grown men. Like this guy is at least 5 to 10 years older than me, and he's behaving like a literal child.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's already kind of weird enough when a girl records herself crying, but when a man does it, it's like there's something like not there, right? There's like something that's like just not okay there. Just me says, can I play it with the closed captioning? I don't know if it gets all the captions, but I can just play it through.
Fuck.
While it's muted.
Elmo says he can sign up for the Ukraine service.
Yeah, he probably wants to. He would if he could, he would orally please Zelensky in this moment right now. Like that's the level of how disgusting this guy is.
He's like the
yeah, I just
meme
want to
of
be next to Zelensky.
He's like the meme of the Tom Brady. It's the Ukraine version of the Tom Brady meme, where it's got the New England fan drinking out of the urinal that Tom Brady pissed in, and it says Tom Brady peed here.
Right. I mean, but it's like it's just such a recorded, like.
Oh damn, man! I can't. Sorry, I can't, y'all. I'm gonna have to stop filming myself. Can't believe what I just witnessed in the White House.
Right. It's pathetic.
You're 45, homie. Turn your fucking hat around. Big Bomber said.
Right.
Hey, I wear my hat backwards.
Especially a fitted hat.
Usually when I'm working.
If you're wearing it backwards, it's got to be a snapback or a trucker hat. Can't be wearing no fitted hats backwards.
When you're
not Kendrick Lamar or 50 Cent. But no, I did want to make sure we covered the Tate stuff too.
Oh yeah,
we're getting close to 9 anyways.
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, let's get into this stuff. It's too bad we don't have more time. I should have noticed that, and I wanted to play this clip for you guys. It's 12 minutes long, but it's Tate reacting to. So we'll kind of just go through it faster. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it.
Oh yeah,
Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, showed up, and Ron DeSantis came out and was like, I don't know what he's here for. I'm going to refer it over to the Attorney General in Florida, but Tate's not welcome here in Florida. And it's like, hold up, dude. This is DeSantis messing up again, right? This is his next faux pas in the set. This is his second strike, right? His first strike was trying to run against Donald Trump. This is strike two, and I don't like saying it. Well, I do, because Tate won me over today, honestly, dude. Like, he's got his negative stuff, but like he kind of addressed things in this interview from the perspective of like how I've critiqued him, and he's he kind of schooled my way of thinking essentially in some of the way that we've talked about him as well. And it's like, okay, well, I'm willing to learn. I'm not in the cult, and so let's go with it.
Is that
and his rebuttal to DeSantis was, I'm an American coming to my home country. I have never been indicted, charged, convicted, I mean, of anything. He literally has a clean rap sheet in all countries. And you, not Ukraine. Where was he at? Romania. He's
Yeah,
been
Romania.
he's been in
Yeah.
Romania for 3 years now, 2+ years, 3 years. And he wanted to leave. He said he's going to go back, but he wanted to leave. He's been basically on house arrest and everything for 2+ to 3 years, and he was allowed to leave based on the fact that the courts in Romania dropped the charges. They didn't. They all but dropped the charges. Right? They said, okay, well, we don't have anything to charge you with yet, besides like fake witness testimony and some of that stuff. And so then they threw the
Right.
case out. But
And
then
the girls came forward and said like they had been made to say things, and they actually completely like what's that called? They revoked their statements or whatever. It was like
right.
main ones who did that.
Right. So then what the scenario was that they the powers that be or whoever controls the court systems over there said, we're going to give essentially the DA of Ukraine another 2 years, not Ukraine, Romania, to look for more evidence. And so their charges weren't dropped, but they're basically have to stay on house arrest while all this crap happens. He missed the funeral of his grandma. I think he said his mom got breast cancer or something like that. He hadn't been able to see a couple of his kids, and ultimately, they had no charges against him, and so they granted him access to travel. And so he traveled. He said, it was funny because he clowned DeSantis. He was like, and I think DeSantis is a good governor, but he makes these kingdom faux pas, these just these huge mistakes, these blunders, and yeah, oh yeah, Earl's daughter. That's a good point. Wait, Zelensky is welcome in Florida, but Tate isn't. Yeah, and so DeSantis is trying to clean it up. I believe this year they just made it to where like certain porn websites don't work in the state like they had in some other states without like the photo identification stuff or whatever. So they're kind of trying to lock down on some of the whateverness of
Age verification.
Yeah. But saying that an American who hasn't been charged with any crime isn't welcome to come home to America was really bad form. And so it was basically Tate schooling Ron DeSantis, and even said, if you want, I'll help you in your next presidential campaign. But it was funny because he said that about 20 minutes after. Well, no, he said that at first at the beginning. But then later on in the show, I watched it out of order. I watched like the last quarter of it and then went back to watch the beginning. Because I came in on it live and finished the live and moved back to the beginning. But he ended up saying that JD Vance is going to be a strong candidate in 2028 because of this whole interaction in the White House and stuff like that. But he said, if DeSantis pays me the right amount of money, I'll teach him how to do his PR right and everything. So it was funny because there's a little bit of hypocrisy in there as far as like who you want to win versus who you'd work for if they pay you the right amount. But
yeah,
that was a whole nother subject. Well, but then we had Candace Owens came out and gave a response as well. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I've been ranting.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, the thing that bothers me with the Andrew Tate people who hate him so much but are also like super pro Trump is like, you realize like they're very close to being one and the same, right? They're extremely polarizing figures who say a lot of things that people like. What were the stuff with Trump, right? His entire first year running in the campaign, he says a lot of things I really don't like, but he's the best that we got. It's the same ordeal, right? Like Trump saying, grab him by the pussy. Okay, like he said a bunch of vulgar things too. Trump's out here putting women in positions like Pam Bondi and other women that should have no business being there. When you know that men can do a better job, like Caroline Leavitt's great, awesome, but Michael Malice would have been in a better position for secretary or press secretary. And then you have Trump, who's also super like pro gay people. I heavily disagree with him there. I think he's a scumbag for that too. But yeah, Andrew Tate's the more like he's like the masculine like scumbag, right? It's like the
Mhm.
he says things like so blatantly, like he calls people broke, right? You're broke. And he
Right,
laughs in people's faces for it. And they both have like their issues there, right? But it's the fact that they're willing to say enough of the right things that many people are too afraid to say, that's why you get so many people who are willing to throw their weight behind him. And so it becomes again a caricature, right? Andrew Tate's less so about like him physically and what he says specifically. It's more so about like the energy behind it, right? Like Andrew Tate is another kind of Molotov cocktail in the system in terms of
right,
being extremely anti-feminist in nature, where Donald
right,
Trump was extremely anti the system, extremely
right.
anti politicians, status quo. Andrew Tate comes out of nowhere, and people watch him because of breath of fresh air. It's like people are like, it's you know how long it's been since I've heard someone say, like f this woman, like treat these women like this or like whatever, but mean it in a way of not obviously like hip hop rap versions, but more so like if you want to be better prepared as a man, do this, right? So that's why they garner all these audiences. And so to not at least be able to see that Donald Trump and Andrew Tate are very similar on the lines of which that people kind of project onto them better and greater things, it's like, I mean, you're failing to see the point. It goes back to that principle thing, right? Of like being pragmatic. It's like, well, feminism's a problem. Andrew Tate's not the perfect square for that square pegged hole, but dang, he's doing a lot of good work to get men, up in arms and be a bit more masculine. Like he even stood up for Christians at the Olympic event. Like he's doing things that other Christian men clearly weren't there and stood in the place for in the first place. And that's why I refer to Joel Webben all the time, because Joel Webben made the point too. It'd been like, what if Christianity was in the same kind of masculine place that Islam was? Who's to say that the Andrew Tate wouldn't have at least tried to, or at least attempted to herald Christianity as his faith when he was deciding what he wanted to do and better himself in that position? But he didn't ultimately because he sees Christianity in the way that it's kind of defaulted to this kind of gross evangelical soft feminism stuff. So there's a lot of things there, but for the pro Trump people to be very anti Tate, it's like, come on, dude. They're one and the same. They're both aces. One's the ace of spades. One's the ace of clubs. They're two different, two different energy
Right.
ideas like that.
Right, and dude, he words things so well. Like I don't know, it was weird. I was trying to break down like his cadence earlier, and it's like he'll make a point, he'll like make the counterpoint, um, and then what it leads to, and everything. And he did such a good job. I highly recommend watching that live that he did on Valuetainment with Patrick Bet David. I think they're putting it out in clips, but so it might be on the PBD podcast, it might be on Valuetainment. Um, but there was another part where he talks about the Matrix attacks. We've heard him talk about the Matrix before, but one of the things he mentioned was that the Diddy thing, right? The video of Diddy beating up his girlfriend in the hotel lobby or hallway or whatever, from 2014. 2016. It's a 9-year-old video that they had saved on the back burner in the Matrix. I think he said in like the files of the Matrix that they dug up when it was convenient and they were ready to kick him out. And he was like, he's not the only one. Diddy's not the only one out here. They just decided for whatever reason they were done with him. And so they went and dug out the video and let everybody see it. And then 2 weeks later, Diddy got arrested. He's like, and it's all how they prep people to accept it. Because if they would have went and arrested him at first, then it's not as acceptable as if they don't show the video, preceding it, right? And so he's like, and they did the same thing to me. He was breaking it all down. And generally, if somebody is under attack from, the matrix, the system, uh, that's the people that, I tend to think we should be listening to.
Right.
And so, if the system's working against a person like Alex Jones, Tate, some of these other folks, it's for a reason. And I generally disagree with what the system is the path they're taking us down. So
Yeah.
it was really good. Candace Owens came out and had a response as well, which was a pretty good response. And then Laura Loomer actually she posted, it doesn't matter if the Tate brothers behave like sexual degenerates, and they do. And as much as I don't like their Islamic LARPing, they're U.S. citizens. Governor Ron DeSantis is trying to impose travel bans on U.S. citizens. He is unfit to be president and unfit to be governor. So Laura Loomer really took a staunch, hardcore stance against Ron DeSantis. And
Yeah.
I'm like Evil Elmo. I'm looking forward to electing Byron Donalds in this next governor race here in Florida because it looks like he's going to be the one that's running. But unfortunately, I've agreed with. I think DeSantis handled the COVID thing properly. He's fought the woke agenda properly. I don't like the anti-Semitic speech laws that he was trying to, or that they implemented, right? And I don't like how he ran for president against Donald Trump. And then this one, I said that was strike 2, but really this is almost strike 3 when you factor in those speech laws. And then I don't know, it's just weird. I almost feel like Ron DeSantis owes Tate an apology for coming out and publicly having such like a harsh gut reaction to an American coming home. I mean, Andrew Tate was like, we rejoice when other political prisoners come home, but when Tate comes home, Ron DeSantis tells us we're not welcome, and it's like, yeah, that's a bad look. That's a really good point.
Right. Well, there's I think more specifically, it becomes more increasingly clear that Ron is still being used by the system without knowing it. But ultimately, he is kind of, in my opinion, I think he might be the best bet for also being controlled opposition. I've not seen really anything very redeeming about Ron DeSantis since his campaign has kind of went up in flames. I think he's now maybe either, who knows what's going on with him. I think he has just ultimately become a part of the system. I have very low faith in him, but I do imagine when it does come for JD Vance and Ron DeSantis to face off, he will be our biggest enemy if JD Vance does begin to herald again the MAGA movement. And I say our very loosely.
True.
But there's a couple of things.
Well, it's just nothing nothing Democrat that we can go with. So this is our side for now, right? At least.
Right.
Probably forever.
Yeah. Well, and you got to think about it too. Like, there's a lot of things that obviously make Tate unsatiable. Now, John was saying clinging on to mainstream relevancy, and I think that's a reach. You I would like the average 20-year-old guy in college to say he's an Andrew Tate fan and see how many women just come up to him and say, "Oh my gosh, like I'm totally an Andrew Tate fan too." Like it's completely not. He's not in the mainstream sense of maybe he's becoming more mainstream among men, but I think ultimately the quote unquote correct opinion to have around women as well in a general setting is like, wow, yeah, I definitely don't like what that Andrew Tate guy says. Oh, no way. The same way people were doing it with Trump, right? It's like, oh yeah, no, Trump just says all these mean things to people. Man, he nearly needs to tone it down if he wants to be professional. He needs to be more professional. I think it's the same one and the same. But like this from Anomaly too, and Anomaly is a phenomenal guy. If you don't follow him on social media, check his videos out. But things of like white replacement, being anti-matrix, like you had said, being anti-feminism, being very open about the fact that there is good and evil, right? He talks about the fact that like these people, like they hate you, right? It's not about the red versus blue. It's like these people hate you. They hate your guts. They want you to be subjugated. So he might be coming more from the sense of that matrix framing there too. But he talks about this, right, with the white replacement as well. What they're seeing in like the foreign nations, and probably more outspoken because he was over there in Europe where it's happening really badly. Not to say that it's not also happening here in the States too. But I thought this is a great clip to play too, because the fact that he was willing to go on PBD and say it too, it just shows that he comes on to these things and he's not afraid. He's not going to hold his opinion back. And again, Ron DeSantis may ultimately not apologize for what it was, but again, Ron DeSantis is consistently finding ways to chop his own feet off, right? It's like he will always damage himself, and maybe that's the point. Maybe him even left unattended, he's going to start saying things that are just like, oh my gosh, man. And now we're getting, it's floated that Casey DeSantis, I think, is now going to be making a run for the governor too. Something along those lines. People are expecting Casey DeSantis is going to run for a position there in Florida.
That's his wife, right?
Yeah, his wife. Yeah.
I mean, if there's no Byron Donalds opposition, maybe. I've heard some good things about her, but I would take Ryan Donalds in a second over any DeSantis right now. Unfortunately, I hate to say it. Like I said, Evil Elmo disagreed with me that there shouldn't have been any lockdowns. They did last 2 to 3 weeks here, but I think everybody was kind of in the country was in the consensus of we'll do the 2 weeks to slow the spread thing, right? And
Right.
DeSantis was one of the first to like break away and say, "No, I'm not doing this." So I mean, at least it has that going for him.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to go ahead and play this too because that the comment that was made by Anomaly that stuck out to me was the very anti Tate guys will never talk about the things that he's talking about right now, which I thought was a great point to make. Like the ones who are very vocally anti Tate typically will stay very far away from talking about things as opaque as white replacement. That's why I just wanted to play this like 3-minute clip here. Hopefully this sounds okay too.
We do it the other way around. It just seems
That's a very good
hypocritical.
point. But that's the point, though. That's the point what a lot of people are making. If you want to live in a place that majority is Muslim, go there. You can move there. If you want to live in a place that's got the traditions, let them stay there, right? That's the whole argument about nationalism. Like if you're proud of your country, no, you shouldn't be proud of your country.
No,
What the
but that
values are.
only applies to white people. And I'm one of the champions of this, even though the hardcore racists on Twitter hate me because they call me mulatto and mixed race and all these things. I don't care. I'm going to champion for it anyway. Only white people are not allowed to love themselves, love their race, and love their countries. Everyone else is. White people are the only ones who could do it. If anyone else flies a flag or says we're from wherever, or we're this color, or we're this religion, we want it, it's fine. When white people do it, it's instantly demonized. White people are the only people who are expected to give up their lands. And it's actually quite, and I say this as a half white man, half black man, it's very obvious. It's very obvious for me to see. And the European countries, what's like, you could argue that America was founded multiracially. You could argue that. But the British people are a type of people. They're an ethnicity. They're a type of people from one place and one part of the earth. And once they lose it, they have nowhere else to go. That's all they have. And they're being replaced in real time. And their leader, Keir Starmer, is letting it happen. And if you talk about it, you go to jail. All of this is happening right now. And unless the men do something and replace him with somebody who cares, they're going to be replaced. That's the bottom line of it. I can then argue, I can move on to the point that, you know, we all get what we deserve in this life and that the strong destroy the weak. We could argue that point. I could sit here and say, well, white people, if you get replaced, you deserve it because you didn't do anything about it. I could make that argument, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. White people are being replaced in their host nations. That's obvious for me to see. I don't think anyone can argue against that point. People try.
But
People
that's
sit
also
and say,
a fair argument, though.
no, it's a very fair argument, but that upsets people. Or they deny it's happening. But it is happening. White people are
Naive.
going extinct.
Yep.
You are
Naive.
going extinct.
But-
And then when you tell people this, they have lots of different answers to it. But nationalism is feared when white people band together. And then, you know, you can argue, this actually ties back into something that's very interesting. The reason they fear nationalism when white people get banded together is because they apply it to World War II. They say, well, white nationalists do what Hitler did because he was a white nationalist. So they say that when white people get together and are nationalistic, it's like the Nazis. When other people get together and they're nationalistic, it's not. Is this actually true? Is this the largest psyop in history? I mean, World War II has had such a profound effect on our culture up until this point now. You know, World War II is the basis for all good and bad in the entire world. If I say to you, name the worst person in history, you'll probably say Hitler. You won't say Stalin, who killed more because he was on our team.
Or Mao.
Or Mao, who killed more. Now, I'm not sitting here sticking up for Hitler. I'm just saying that World War II has shaped the modern world, and they use it as an emotional trigger to prevent white people from sticking up for themselves. Guess what I saw in the car on the way here? A terror attack in Germany, a car attack. You see it?
Yep. This morning.
A Muslim ran.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point to also, even, you know, you tie that in with Christian nationalism, right? The worst thing that you can call someone isn't a demon or you're, you know, calling someone Satan. It's Hitler. Hitler has risen above as like the number one most evil thing you can call somebody. And it shows, again, exactly what he was saying, the way that it has entirely shaped the modern framework for politics, for what shrouds the edges and how far you're allowed to go, the boundaries you're allowed to push. Ultimately, again, in that same exact light, right, which is the fact of, you know, when whites band together, it immediately goes to again the white nationalism, right, which is more closely with Hitler. It was national socialism. But again, why is Tate talking about this and not every public, conservative commentator? Props to PBD as much as I think he's a scam artist. I'm glad that he has him on there on that platform. I'll take that, right? I'll take that, the fact that they're willing to even have the conversation. But most kind of take that position, like what he had said, which is, oh yeah, well, it's not really happening, or like anyone who says that it's happening is like dog whistling or something like that too. So there's a lot to be pointed out in the fact that what you get from this guy is in the element of a breath of fresh air because of what you're getting, because it's touching the boundaries, right? And ultimately, I think that's why most people can't stand him. They're like, just say the line, man, just say the line. And he's like, what if I say the line and then this too? And
Right.
then you get all the disagreement there.
Right. Marcus Young said, by the way, I'm watching you guys over Tim Pool. Love you guys. Hey, appreciate that, Marcus. That's cool.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Down with a beanie, man.
Maybe one of these days, Tim Pool will invite us on and you can watch us all at the same time.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, man, that's that whole interview was really well, I gotta admit, I haven't watched the whole thing. I did start like I'll watch the last 25%, and then I watched like the first half. So there's a gap that I haven't seen in there. I hadn't actually watched that clip that we just played. But Earl's daughter's asking PBD is a scam artist. Atlas, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to get into that a little bit? I know we're past 9, so if you got time,
Yeah.
we can do that,
Yeah.
and then we'll probably just wrap it up.
No, so well, there's a couple things with that too. Ultimately, really, with PBD was a lot of the way he had set up his show, also with some of his previous dealings as well. He literally was, I mean, by definition, what he got into was a pyramid scheme. Now it's been a few weeks since we covered it, so I can't remember all of the details. But PBD was repeatedly community noted over and over and over and over again on X because he kept saying that he didn't do these specific things. It's been a minute since I can remember the exact claims there, but it was the way that he structured his business, kind of the same way that you would look at a pyramid scheme, right? Ultimately, kind of reaping the wealth from the very top while everyone kind of works underneath you, kind of pushing everything up. It's kind of the way the pyramid scheme works. Secondly, when it came to the H-1B visa debate, that's when he got let up for this, was because it was proven that he was hiring people with the H-1B visas while he was speaking out of both sides of his mouth about it. He hired a graphic designer for valuetainment for $40,000 a year. So we're talking about someone at the highest level on a YouTube channel, paying someone less than what you can make if you worked a full salary at like Walmart's management position to actually make all of the graphics on a full-time basis for valuetainment, which is clearly a very well high produced podcast. So there's a few things with that too. If you wanted more specifics on that, I forget who asked the question, Earl's daughter. You can look it up on the quartering. He covered that pretty extensively. There are a few others who covered that as well. But it's also what he had done previously. It's kind of been a pattern of his life as well. So not even just with the YouTube game there. It was the fact of, that's what it was. His PBD's claim to fame that got him to where he's at now talking politics was he actually did the original trope of, I'm a business guy and here's how you do sales. And if you pay on my program, like this will happen. This was like how we'll get you to get to where you want to go. And his program was a pyramid scheme. And that was how PBD made a lot of his money and how he got a lot of like notoriety. Was he was in the same class as, what's the guy's name, man? There's a few kind of really big sales people now, like the Grant Cardones of the world. And those guys who just, they say the reason you're not doing anything successful is because you just haven't sold enough product or you're not saying the right closing lines and like all those kinds of things. So that's what he put it off of, right? It was through YouTube, through a kind of online platform, a website, and it was by definition, if you looked at the insides and the way it worked, it was a pyramid scheme. So the quartering and no cover that extensively and a few others as well. But
he ended up selling that business, I think, and walking away with a shit ton of money.
Yeah,
it was a insurance company or something like that. So I don't know all the details, but it's definitely a kink in his armor, I believe. You know what I mean?
right.
But I do think what he does with the show and the conversations that they have are definitely useful to the cause, right?
Right. Same thing with Vivek, right? Who is also another proponent of the H-1B visa stuff, which I didn't find out until during that discussion. And people were obviously, that was one of those heated discussions that we saw on X among the right wing itself. And people would started digging up Vivek's claim to fame, and not just his book, but the pharmaceutical thing that the drug that he tried to patent and made money off of was also a known failed product. He tried, I can't remember the specific details on that, but people dug that up as well too. But that he built up with this pharmaceutical agent drug. Now there was like 2 different cases in which it was proven it was ineffective, but then he still sold out on it, knowing it was a failed product, and that was Vivek's claim to have him making a lot of money. And yeah, people can go back and forth about what you want to think about PBD. I don't mind at all. It's not going to bother me one way or another. But if you wanted more detail about the full spring of like what his pyramid scheme was, it was to do with that original build up on that YouTube channel where he had built that up with the agency. Now, if you were to ask me, who is a licensed insurance agent, most brokerages are built like pyramid schemes. Like that's like by definition, if you are an insurance brokerage, as someone who's been in that industry, they are naturally built to be pyramid schemes. And the reason for being is because you'll get recruited by somebody to work for their agency. And while you work for their agency, if they do things like if they pay for your leads in order to give you initial work there, you'll do the work and then you have to cut your commission with them. More often, they're making as much commission off of it as you are, but you did all of the work and they would have just paid a couple of dollars for the lead. There's so much that's just insurance itself is a pyramid scheme already. But there's plenty of businesses that are like that too. So people are just pointing out the fact that maybe it was a bit unethical the way that he had built his business up.
Yeah, yeah. Earl's daughter said I'm babysitting tonight. Got to put the grandbaby to bed. Good night, everybody, and God bless. And yeah, good night, Earl's daughter. Thanks for being here. We'll probably see you on Wednesday. We'll be here. Hopefully, we'll see you on Wednesday as well. Let's see. Well, with that, should we just wrap it up, or do you want to?
Well, I was going to say I got to take off, but if you wanted to keep going, go ahead. Because there's a couple more of those clips there from Andrew Tate in there.
Right. I was going to say, let me see if I can actually share my screen. It'll let me share my screen.
Do I need to stop sharing mine?
No, you don't have to. It'll add a new box. Okay. Yeah, I want to play this Candace Owens. Sorry, I'm getting all these kind of pop-ups since I had to start my computer completely from scratch, by the way, for those of you that don't know.
You're good. I did want to say, I do got to take off because I want to make sure I help my wife with the child. I haven't seen him all day yet either.
Yeah, go
thanks
do
everybody
your thing.
For being in here.
Yeah, go do your thing. I'm going to stick around for just a little bit longer because I wanted to play this one from Candace, and then I'll probably wrap it up too. But
yeah, the clip from Candace and the one from that Loomer also clipped as well. I thought it was pretty good too.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, bro. Well, have a good night.
Yeah, you guys all take care. I appreciate everybody for being here. And as we found out last time too, you can go to World Stream if you want to, but mine should continue to play it out as well as long as World's live too. So whatever you guys want to do, if you want to merge chats together, definitely feel free. Not going to hurt my feelings at all. But go over there and help World maybe boost his numbers too.
Make sure to hit the like button and all that stuff.
Yeah, smash the like button, subscribe, share, join the Discord. All the links are in my description as well. But you guys take care, and I will see you guys on Wednesday.
Cool, man. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. Let's do that one. All right. So I want to play this from Candace, by the way. I brought Buffy up here for you guys to see. She's an inside chicken right now. Mess with her. Poor girl. She's got a hurt foot. But she's loving it inside. She's just laying around all day. Not being messed with by the roosters or anything like that. What's up, Tix? What's up, House? Atlas Raid. Let's see here. PVD and Andrew Tate make me want to focus on lit more, not worried about them. That's funny. Okay, so Candace Owens posted on Andrew and Tristan Tate. She says, in the Ron DeSantis comments, if we're going to speak out about getting rid of pornography, let's talk about Pornhub. And then this is Candace's take. It's 3.5. It's almost 4 minutes long.
And by the way, if we're going to speak about getting rid of pornography, the very last people we should be worrying about is Andrew and Tristan Tate. Okay, let's talk about Pornhub. Like, really, guys, if we're going to go for it, let's talk about Pornhub. And so I just had the nuance, and I read the case, and everyone condemned me. How could you defend them?
Have a good night, Evil Elmo. Appreciate you for being here and everything you said in chat and all that good stuff.
I'm just reading the facts, and they're not going to be convicted. Well, guess what? That happened. Okay. The case ended up being thrown out in Romania. They said there's no evidence here. It's exactly what I was saying. There's not enough evidence here to bring charges against them. And the prosecutors essentially were going to have to rebuild an entire case to try to charge them, at which case it looks like the Trump administration intervened because they are American citizens, and they were just brought back to America. They are now on American soil. They landed this morning. And for some reason, people are angry about that because they don't like who Andrew and Tristan Tate are. They do not like their online personas. They don't like the way that they speak to women. And so they're happy to have these men be wrongfully convicted for something that they didn't do. I cannot understand this logic. I cannot understand why you think you need to like someone or agree with their lifestyles in order to say that no person should spend a single second in prison for something that they didn't do. Like, that is the moral stance to have, that due process is right, and that if they are an American citizen, of course, they belong back on American soil. And so Ron DeSantis, who kind of has always danced to his donors' emotions, came out and it was asked about them landing in Florida, which is, like I said, they're American citizens. And here is what Ron DeSantis said.
There's some reporting out there that controversial podcaster and accused human trafficker Andrew Tate may be on his way to Florida. Is he welcome here? What did the state do to send him back to Romania or whatever?
Well, we have no involvement in that. I read about it through the media. Clearly, the federal government has jurisdiction, whether they want to rebuff his entry into the United States, and I have confidence that whether it's Pam Bondi or Christy Nome, they will be looking at that. I do know our Attorney General, James Kuthmeyer, is looking at what state hooks and jurisdiction we may have to be able to deal with this. But the reality is no, Florida is not a place where you're welcome with that type of conduct in the air. And I don't know how it came to this. We were not involved. We were not notified. I found out through the media that this was something that was happening.
Okay, so to be very clear, that is deranged. That is not a conservative perspective. That should not be a liberal perspective. They were not convicted of anything. They were convicted of nothing. And what he is saying is that based on their conduct, even the person asking the question says they were accused. They weren't convicted. That's the point. Being accused of a crime means absolutely nothing. Okay, as we have learned, you can be accused of anything today. You can be accused of being a sexual abuser or a sexual harasser if you're Justin Baldoni. The question is, were they convicted? If the answer is no, I don't really care about how Ron DeSantis feels about an American citizen coming home. That disqualifies him for ever running for president of the United States ever again. Okay, if you cannot set aside your emotions, we do not need you in leadership positions. If you are not able to look at things objectively, whether you are looking at someone and you go, oh, I don't agree with their politics. It's Matt Lauer, people that cheered that on because he was Matt Lauer and he was on the left. You're a loser. Okay, you're a loser that you can't set aside your politics, that you can't set aside your emotions, and you can't set aside your beliefs, by the way, to realize that the Constitution does not exist because of how you feel.
Oh, weird. I can't hear the sounds. Interesting. Hopefully it stops when the video stops. Sounds like it's still going. I can hear the TV in the other room, so I was listening for. Sorry. I don't know what that's from. It's probably because I'm just using my Bluetooth speaker for a microphone this evening. So sorry about that, you guys. There's nothing I can really do about it. Until I get my good mic back working again. It's not working, right? No, okay. It's my pet dolphin. Yeah, getting the whole new setup going. You think you have it all good, and then I was like, well, I'll be able to work out any of the live bugs, any of the the additional bugs when I'm live, and then mic not working is kind of a big one, right? House the Turtle. Between 6'1" and 6'7", depending on the convenience store I'm walking in. That's funny. Let's see here. Saw some good stuff in chat. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, anyways. Okay, you don't hear it anymore, Andrea? I thought you were talking about, at first when you mentioned that, I thought you were talking about the clicks in her like mouth when Candace was talking, because I got this headset on. I can always pick it up when their mic is not too fine-tuned, but so fine-tuned that they make like little whistle sounds with their mouth and stuff like that when they talk. And so that's what I was hearing. I can't actually hear the bottle sound, but I did hear it in the TV coming through the wall. Wes, you're supposed to be in Chelsea. Tix is actually 6'3". You're tall. Like I said in the past, I'm like 5'8", 5'9", 5'9" with shoes on, maybe 5'10". Depends on if it's my boots. But I don't have DeSantis boots. But Andrew Tate did say that he's going back to Romania. He's not going to just stick around in the United States, and like he I think he'd legally be able to. Although I think he has. Let's see here. Yeah, Michael, you're not blocked, but some of your messages aren't coming through in the chat. Like I'm seeing them on StreamYard, but they're not coming through in the stream for whatever reason. So, but a lot of times you say stuff that's not really on topic. Just to be honest with you, bro. So, unless we wanted to like completely derail the entire conversation, sometimes we just don't address it, right? But let's see here. Yeah, YouTube doesn't like Michael. But yeah, so anyways, Andrew Tate is supposedly facing some charges in Europe, and so there's like an extradition thing going on. Like, will they take him out of the United States and send him to Europe or whatever? I don't know. But he claims that he's going back to face the music. He's not running from any charges or anything like that. So we'll see. I think he said that he could be in the United States for like 30 days or something like that. He can be out of the country for like 30 days or something like that. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of Andrew Tate as he does the circuit. I'm sure while he's in the United States, he's going to probably hit up all the podcasts and everything that he can. Laura Loomer posted what I read earlier, but then she had another post. Where did it go? She also said, I'm a free speech absolutist. I don't agree with the sexual habits of the Tate brothers, but at Culver Tate has agreed to come on my show next week, so we will see him on the Laura Loomer Unleashed, which I guess I'll follow that. Keep an eye out for that. That was her responding to Ron DeSantis and doing what he did. Really disappointed in Ron DeSantis doing that, but I guess it just is what it is. I'm wondering if it was more of a gut reaction, to be honest with you, DeSantis potentially not knowing the legal parameters around Tate. Like, was he fleeing to Florida? Is his presence in Florida going to drag the state into some type of international quarrel? I don't know. You know, that could be me just making an excuse for him. But I'm wondering if maybe that's where he was coming from in his perspective, was he was trying to avoid some type of international incident, right? But also, it's been thrown out there that Tate, that Trump's White House, because was it? I think it was Alina Habba was on Benny Johnson's show last week talking to Tate and Benny, and she was kind of fangirling over Tate. And then this week, Tate shows up in the United States, and so there's some speculation that maybe she spoke to Trump, the Trump administration, to do something to enable Andrew to travel and to the United States, but Trump said that he has no clue what's going on, and Tate denies any knowing, any knowing any information about that being the case. He says it's just basically he wanted to leave the country that he had been stuck in for the last few years. TT says, I think DeSantis is a good governor, but not good at reading the room on a bigger stage. Yeah, I think that's true. There's just maybe a mental block there or something like that. Let's see. Maybe sometimes short-sighted. Yeah, it's a weird scenario. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some type of clarification in the next day or two. I think there's a lot of backlash going on DeSantis, and I would like to see him come out and apologize and be like, "No, you're an American. You're welcome to come home. It's good to have you home." You know, and that's the way I generally feel with anybody that's been, prisoner overseas or whatever, right? Besides Brittany Griner. But that's because we traded the Merchant of Death for her in the prisoner exchange. But ultimately, I don't want any American sitting in some other foreign jail unless they committed a serious crime in that country or whatever. But as far as Tate right now, has no conviction, so gotta stick with that innocent until proven guilty, pretty much, right? I think I'm gonna go ahead and just call it right there. I was considering playing these other videos, but now with that weird sound that was popping up, I'm afraid it's gonna come back if I start playing more videos. I was gonna maybe play that 11-minute clip that's Andrew Tate addressing Ron DeSantis, but I just recommend that you guys go and check it out. It's actually on it's on PBD's X. He posted it on PBD podcast account, and it's also on his YouTube channel. They've already clipped a few 10-minute segments, 12-minute segments of the like I said, I think it was 2.5 hour long interview, and they've already put some of those out there. There's two that I've seen, and both of them he actually talks about DeSantis. I was hoping to play both, but go check them out. It's definitely worth seeing. Andrew Tate won me over on some stuff today. I was generally just kind of turned off to him. Understood that he had a place in the battle, but now I like him a little bit more, right? Let's see. DeSantis has been a good governor, but I don't know about him being more than that. Yeah, Steve, I'm right there with you. He's got 4 years to make himself look more appealing than JD Vance, and DeSantis is only going to be governor for 2 of those 4 years. So he's going to have a hard road. I don't know what he's going to be able to do with those next 2 years after that. Maybe prep for a presidential run. But at this point, I'd like to see him maybe be on somebody's team, not necessarily the lead candidate. Maybe he might make a good cabinet position somewhere for JD or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating, thinking through. Like, I definitely don't want him to fall off the grid because he has done some good work. But I don't know. We'll see. There's still a lot of time between now and 2028. Let's not rush it. Let's enjoy this Trump era a little bit longer. The golden age, right? I think that's what they're calling it, the golden age. Let's see. What did TNT say? Oh, TNT says, I guess that they took Desert Drifter off life support this morning. It's in God's hands as to when he passes. Oh, man. Oh, that sucks. So they're basically, that was Andrew over at the Desert Drifter channel. And so are they basically just going to let him either recover or like just kind of let him live out off life support? Sounds like the latter, where he doesn't have a strong chance of survival. That sucks. I've been praying for him. He's brain dead. Oh man, that sucks. Yeah, I've been praying for him. Unfortunately, God has another plan than what we do in that man's life. So for his family. So yeah, we'll continue to pray for Andrew over at Desert Drifters and his family. But with that, I think I'll go ahead and just wrap it up. We'll be back on Wednesday. This time I'll be on time. I'll hopefully, not hopefully, but I will work out all of my microphone issues. It's weird. I run the mic through a soundboard, and the soundboard has an app, and I don't know if it's not connecting. I don't know what's going on, so I'm gonna have to troubleshoot a bunch of stuff. Life has been super busy away from the computer the last week, so I haven't been able to make any of my daily videos. If y'all been looking for those, it's not YouTube, it's me. But I love doing the live show. This has become my favorite part of this job, talking to you guys every night and talking in the Discord, or not every night, but 3 times a week, talking in the Discord, all that type of good stuff. So if you haven't joined the Discord yet, consider clicking that button now. And love to see you guys over there to continue these conversations. We have all kinds of rooms for, shared Christianity, community chat. We have voice chat, all kinds of stuff. Typical Discord, pretty much. But, anyways, with that, I'm going to go make some food. Christ is King. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Don't have the intro song. Well, maybe I exit song. Let me see. We'll see if it works this time. All right, it's working. So at least I got that one going. Christ is King. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. Thanks a lot, everybody.
With war rolling at the start, we here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast, we breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up, we won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast, where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast, where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas thugged, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.